Hi folks, continuing on with our deep dive into the first third, we're going to look at shouldering and white crane spreads wings today. So let's get going. Let's start with these drills we've introduced during this deep dive, just to warm everything up. So the squatting, wider than shoulder wide, feet pointed out, toes are going to track and align with the feet. You sit down and stand up. Breathing in as you squat, breathing out as you stand back up. Pay particular attention to the motion of the thighs, the way they rotate out as you sit down and rotate back in as you stand up. And then follow that all the way through, down to the base of the feet, and notice how as you squat the arch increases, and as you stand back up the arch in your feet relaxes back to its neutral, slightly arched state. You'll feel as if the ball and the heel are rolling towards each other when you sit down and rolling away from each other as the arch flattens when you stand up. And then you can watch these same changes going through the rest. Diaphragm drops, diaphragm relaxes. Pelvis broadens, torso narrows. Really getting that feeling for how just sitting up and down changes all the way through the legs down to the arch and all the way through the body up to the top of the head. 3 more times. Great. 70-30 shifting exercise. We'll do both sides, so start either side with a leg forward. Start in the front. Release down through the front leg towards the 50-50 point. Shift onto the back leg. Release down through the back leg towards the 50-50 point. Shift onto the front leg. Watch how the leg that you're standing on, the supportive stable leg, changes in the blink of an eye at the 50-50 point. Standing on the front leg, bang, standing on the rear leg. Standing on the rear leg, bang, standing on the front leg. Stability, the leg you're relying on changes right at 50-50. Hips moving as if in a shallow walk. Down the half pipe, up the other side. Down the half pipe, up the other side. Change legs. Start in the front, release down through the front leg at 50-50, you're standing on the rear leg. Release down through the rear leg at 50-50, it changes to the front leg. The leg you're relying on for support changes right at the 50-50 point. Once more. Back to the first side. This time watch the active leg, the way that when you start in the front, you go down through the front leg. At 50-50, you tap the ground. The rebound comes up through the front leg. Going forward, down through the rear leg. At 50-50, the rebound comes up through the rear leg. So sitting back, the front leg is the active leg. Sitting forward, the rear leg is the active leg. The direction through the active leg changes at the 50-50 point. Going down, tap the ground, rebound comes up through the leg. Going down, tap the ground, rebound comes up through the leg. Front leg active all the way back. Rear leg active all the way forward. Once more, forward or back and forward. Change sides. Same thing, following the action in the leg. Sitting down through the front leg, rebound comes up through the front leg. Sitting down through the rear leg, rebound comes up through the rear leg. Direction in the active leg changes right at the 50-50 point. Once more, back and forward. Okay. Now the stepping exercise. So start out on your back foot at an angle, put your front foot out in front of you, sit down further and slide the front foot out further. Stand up, and as you do that, feel the slack taken out of the front leg, and then continue standing up, bringing the front leg back. Sit down like a bathtub, water displacing, knee buoys of the front leg, foot steps. Standing up, take the slack out, and then let the foot slide. Sit down, feel the knee become buoyant, allow that to play out to the foot. So make sure when you're standing up, the leg gets no slack in it, and then you just draw it back on the ground. Sitting down, feel that motion go through the leg, use the knee, let the foot step. Once more, standing up and sitting down. Change sides, stand on the other leg, put your empty foot out in front of you, sit down and slide the foot out further away from you. Standing up, slack out of the leg, keep standing up, draw the foot back. Sitting down, knee buoys, foot steps. So work both sides, allowing the leg to come back, allowing the sitting in the bathtub to displace the water and move the foot. Both motions of the leg happen without any engagement in the leg or foot that's stepping. Once more, standing up and sitting down. Great. So do spend time with those drills. They're totally simplified, so they'll let you pay attention to particular things. The squatting drill lets you watch the dynamics down through the leg, and in particular the way that affects the foot and the arch. The shifting forward and back will teach you about the interchange of which leg is supporting you, right at the 50-50 place. And it'll teach you about how the motion can go through a leg and the direction of the motion changing right at the 50-50. And then this sitting up and down, taking the slack out of the leg, drawing the leg back, sitting down, letting the leg float and have that play out into a step. Will teach you a couple of the main ways that we step. The other big one for stepping is the hero stroll, where you, again, take the slack out of the rear leg and then release it and allow the foot to step. So if you have the skill at those three ways of moving your legs, the taking the slack out and then having the foot just move, becoming just sitting down into a bathtub and allowing the displaced water to end up moving the foot, and creating this dynamic tautness and releasing it using the knee to direct the leg, you've pretty much got all the various ways we step in the Taiji form. And all these are different from using force or strength. I'm definitely, as I'm doing this, as I stand up, I want all of the whole leg gets a little bit taut, and as I continue to stand up, this hip moving pulls the foot back, versus standing up, keeping the leg bent, and bringing my foot back. That's real different. Same thing when you're stepping, sitting down. I've taken the tautness out, I've stood up. As I sit down, it's like rising water floats my knee and allows the foot to follow that. Real different from sitting down and moving your foot. So spending time with these drills will help you actually get that skill for stepping, which then you have to use in the complication of the form. So I know I always say this whenever we work on them, but practice these. They'll teach you. So let's do a first third, and then we'll work on our moves for the day. Go ahead. Great. So this little section of the form, from single whip up through white crane, has a lot of stuff where the feet are at 90 degrees. Mostly in 70-30s, our rear foot is pointed to a corner as we're pointed straight ahead, or in 100%, our rear foot is pointed to the corner and we're pointed straight ahead. All those things, you don't have as wide an angle on the rear foot. And so one of the things that not having as wide an angle lets you do is it lets you actually get the waist square to the front. In 70-30s, a lot of times people won't actually square their waists all the way. And it's often because their rear foot is turned out too far, so they can't actually get square, or else they're standing not with enough width. And the thing that happens with not having enough width is that you'll tend to push your rear heel out. As I turn square, watch my rear heel, it gets pushed out. And so notice if you're doing that, because it probably means you didn't step with enough width. And notice even if you have enough width, you're not getting your waist square in a 70-30. It's likely that you're still standing in the rear leg rather than the front, and the rear leg is at too wide of an angle. And so if you can get in the front leg and you get the rear leg turned into the right angle, you'll be able to square. So really pay attention to those. Then there's this whole segment of moves where the feet are at 90 degrees rather than pointed in the corner. And what that will mean is you actually can't physically square your waist. Maybe there's, people who were raised in Beijing opera since they were 2 and, have developed very, very, very unusual physiques and are able to stand on a 90-degree leg and square their waists. I'm pretty sure anybody who's watching this video cannot physically do that. So it's important that you recognize those places where the waist won't square and don't force it, because what happens when you force it, watch my knee here, what happens when you force it is that instead of the knee continuing along the line of the toes, the knee gets pulled in. And so it needs to be there where Beth is indicating, not there. I'm not putting all my weight in the rear leg, because if I put all my weight in the rear leg, that'll hurt my knee pretty quickly. In order to put all my weight in the rear leg, the knee needs to be going with the toes, and my waist will not be square. When I force my waist to square, it'll pull the knee off the toes. And so notice that. Wolf once said in response to a student asking about knee pain, that knee pain is a Taiji player's best friend. And what I don't know that I quite buy that it's your best friend, but what he was saying from that was that it gets your attention, and then use that to improve your shapes and positions so that you don't pull your knees off anymore. A diagnostic is the tripod on the bottom of the foot. And when the knee falls in, I will lose the ball behind the little toes. And so if you can pay attention to a good, clean connection to the ground through all 3 points of the tripod, you will keep your knee from straying, and then you'll figure out where you can turn your waist. So I just want to really emphasize that in these 90-degree postures, they're hard, and you won't be able to square your waist. Not in any of them. So this whole sequence of lift hands, shoulder strike, white crane, you won't be able to get your waist square. And that's just the way it is. So don't fight that. Instead, keep the 3 points of the tripod connected to the ground. Keep the knee tracking the toe rather than going some other direction. And then let the waist turn be what it can be. And as Beth did in the Tuesday class, when you're doing this squatting, you're working the same changes that you need in order to get into lift hands or play guitar or white crane. So save the knees, really pay attention to this. Don't make knee pain your best friend, but do let knee pain, if it happens, serve as a not ignored signal to you that you need to get the alignment better in your legs. And these exercises that we're doing, like this squatting, will gradually both build the strength you need in your legs in order to do this, and will teach you how they work so that you have the hips working separately from the knees and you'll be able to preserve that alignment. So just really do that. So let's spend some minutes on the choreographic details, the square form details of these moves, and then we'll move on to breathing life into them and making them have the same kind of flow that we're trying to bring all the way through the form. So taking it from single whip, we'll run through lift hand, shouldering, and white crane, and then I'll talk shouldering and white crane a little bit. I started on shouldering on Tuesday. So I'll face this way, so I end up facing the camera. Beth will face whatever direction seems right. Okay, so just running through it. From single whip, all the weight goes forward, turn the waist, hugging the tree, hug a smaller tree, feel out to your fingertips, bring the hands and foot back, step, shouldering, shift 100%, separate the hands and foot, white crane. Again, single whip, and go ahead. And once more. Really pay attention to your knees here. Single whip, shift and turn, hugging the tree. Make sure your left knee is still pointed exactly to your previous front. Lifting hands. Make sure your left knee didn't wobble. You've still got connection with the points of the tripod. Drop the hands, bring back the foot. Left knee is stable. Step, shouldering. Make sure the right knee is pointed right exactly forward, 3 points of the tripod on the right foot. White crane. Keep the right knee in alignment. Feel the 3 points of the tripod in your right foot. And take a break. So, this is a place where if you approach this externally and trying to strive, you're apt to pull your knees out of alignment with your toes. And so, I really want to emphasize that you don't do that. So real quickly, from lifting hands, you turn your waist, the palms rotate, you drop the hands, you bring the foot back. You've got a ball of air between the two hands. Be careful of pulling the hands and foot behind yourself. So you know the rule. The rule is that my elbow should never go further behind my side-to-side center line than it does in the opening move. So it should never go further back than that. When you do dropping the hands after lift hands and you pull the arm back, the elbow goes further back. Here's Beth. Here's her side-to-side center line right there, and there's her elbow pulled further back. So don't let that happen. I turn, my hands rotate, the foot comes back, I step out. When you step out, you want to step out so that you're between heels in a line and a half shoulder wide, not a full shoulder wide. So you can let there be a little bit of space between the heels, but not much. And when you shift into shoulder strike, really make sure you have this alignment. Hip, knee, toes, all pointed exactly straight forward. If you come in less than shoulder wide, so that your feet would be like a T, not an L in Ben's terms, when you shift into that front leg, the knee's going to head off in its own direction. That's just guaranteed. It's the way it works. So that's part of why you want this heels in a line to half shoulder wide, so that you can really get the front foot lined up there. The right arm is long, hanging. It'll be just outside your thigh, but you're not reaching out at all. It's really hanging there. The image here is as if you're pushing a car in the snow. So if you're pushing a car that's stuck, you're not going to do it with your arm hanging out, because then you'll just be using the arm. You want the whole body to come and push the car. And there's something about shoulder strike that leads us to lean. So Professor Chung, particularly, we're told, called out this move as one where it's easy to adopt a posture that is asking for a beating. And when you do shoulder strike this way, you're asking for a beating. And just look at me. Which part am I hitting Beth with when I do this? Is it my shoulder and arm, or is it my head? So this is not called forehead strike. This is called shoulder strike. And it's really this whole section of the arm. It's not, what we'd think of as the shoulders. It's this whole section of the arm. And the word in Chinese, kao, doesn't have anything to do with the shoulders. It's more like bump. So what you're doing here is you're bumping the other person. It's like physically displacing them by taking your whole body into their space. So if Beth does this, so I'm going to pull your arm. If Beth does this and I grab her arm, what she does is she steps in and displaces me. And that is not with her arms. We'll do it in slow-mo, which won't get the dog as excited, and won't displace me as well. But you can see what happens here. I pull her arm, and she steps in. Then she takes her body, and she puts it where mine is. And that makes me have to move. She's not pushing me with her arm or anything. She's just displacing me. So this is a classic thing. Somebody grabs your arm, and they go. And it's easy. Now, kids, don't try this at home. Work respectfully with people, and especially in COVID times. Be careful who you're breathing on. But that move there will just happen. So the step is long. It's long into the other person's space, and then you just displace them. So then, getting into white crane. So from shoulder strike, I shift all my weight and turn. My hands start to come apart, and I finish the move. Final posture, the right hand has rotated so that the palm is out. It's not, Ben would say it was like a salute, but we do it more open. But you're also not forcing it to try to get your hand to point up. It's comfortable. It's a hand span, thumb to pinky from your right eyebrow to the back of the right hand. So there's that amount of space. The other hand has come over here at your thigh, and it's a fist width away from your thigh. When you raise the hand, make sure that the hand raises just in front of you. Of course, you're turning your body as that happens. So as the hand raises just in front of me, I'm turning my body from facing frontal in shoulder strike to facing to the new frontal in white crane. And so the hand moves, but it's just coming up in front of me. It's not doing this. It's not coming over to the side and then coming in. It's rising right in front of you. And the other hand just brushes across my thigh. That's just a deflection across there. So let's do that a couple times. We'll stop at checkpoints, and then I'll turn it over to Beth, who will make this less mechanical. So from lifting hands, turn the waist, palms rotate, drop the hands, bring the foot back. Make sure you've got a ball of air between the two hands. Make sure you didn't pull your left elbow behind you, and you didn't pull your right ankle behind you. Step out, no width to half shoulder wide. Shift. As you shift, transfer your attention to the new front where your right foot is pointing, and make sure the right hand comes palm down, the left hand comes palm down, fingers right by the right elbow, and the right arm is long. This is displacing somebody with the outside of your arm, not leaning into them with your forehead. Shift 100% forward. Watch the path of the right hand as you come into white crane. Check it out. Where's your right hand relative to your right eyebrow? Check it out. Where's your left hand relative to your left thigh? Notice that your waist is in the corner, not square, because save the knees, but you're looking front. Great. Again. Lifting hands. Drop the hands. Bring back the foot. Ball of air, no pulling back. Step out. Shift. As you shift, the waist turns slightly. The attention goes to the new front. Left palm down by right elbow, right arm long. 100%. Turn back towards the new front. Right hand rises, palm span from the eyebrow, left hand dropped, fist width from the thigh, all the weight in the back. Front foot touches on the ball. Great. Once more, let's take it from single whip this time. Single whip. All the way forward, turn, hug the tree, rear foot pivoted on ball. Bring the hands together, bring the foot in. Feel out to your fingertips. Drop the hands, turn the waist. Let the front foot come back. Step. Shift. Left hand comes up. Right arm is long. Waist turns slightly. Eyes watching front. 100%. Turn the waist. Right hand rises in front of your body. Left hand sweeps over your thigh. All the weight in the back. Great. Take a break. Okay. So, inch by inch, working our way through the first third. And here's Beth with more.
So let's look at white crane spreads wings a little more. So its name is that you're spreading your wings. So your arms are your wings and you're spreading them. Another translation for the name of this move is cools its wings. So you've got this sense of kind of just hanging out there with your wings open and cooling off. So this notion of your arms as wings, you're not flapping them, you're spreading them and cooling them. And so it really has to come up across the front of the body. Just like Lee was saying, it's very tempting to see this transition as going like this and bringing the arm around and bringing it toward your head. But it's not. It's a situation where your wings just come right up the center of the body and spread that way. So I want to do a little exercise. Professor Chung put together these shapes that he said this is a good way for people who maybe can't do the whole form to get some Taiji movement. And he called them the 8 ways or the 8 methods. And there were a bunch of different little standalone exercises. And one of them he called standing at the edge of the abyss, which is remarkably like white crane spreads wings. And I don't know if he did it on both sides alternating, but we like to do that because it feels really good. So let's do that a little bit. Start with your feet in a V, and your right arm is hanging long, palm in front of your center, like in front of the groin. Left hand is fingertips inside right elbow. Knees are a little bent, and you're going to shift all the way to the right leg. And as you do that, you spread your wings. Right arm comes up, left arm comes down, left foot steps out. Then bring your foot back. This is how we alternate sides. Bring your high hand into your elbow, shift to the other leg, and spread your wings in the other direction. So let's just do this a little bit. The hand that's high comes into your elbow. You shift to the other leg. The hand that's in your elbow drops down and takes your foot out with it. So it's a lot like white crane on both sides without the 90-degree angle in between the 2 feet. So you're standing with your feet to the corner, which means you can focus straight ahead. But the important thing is this feeling of dropping into the full leg, freeing the empty leg, and following the arms into a white crane spreads wing shape. And so it really gets you used to the feeling of having the arms come apart in front of your body as opposed to swinging around the outside. So coming right up your center line, into the elbow, right up the center line. Another thing this gives you is as you shift, you come into an expansive feeling as the arms come into position. And then there's a gather and expand. So you get the sense of white crane spreads wings as having a upward quality. We're not simply going down, 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 down to get that arm up. It's a big expansive feeling to get the high arm up, protecting your temple. So I think this is a really nice move to play around with. It feels good, and it gets you used to separating the weight as well as having the right shape of how the path that the arms take. So you really, really, really need to be 100%. That's why he calls it standing at the edge of the abyss. If you're standing at the edge of the abyss and you've got weight in your front leg, boom, down the Grand Canyon you go. So you really drive home this idea that it's got to be a feeling of 100%. You're resting on the ball, but there's no weight there. All the weight in one leg, the other leg is completely empty. So rest your legs a moment and use this to help you find 100%. Now, of course, it's more difficult when we're standing with our feet at 90 degrees from one another, but your dantian doesn't have to go anywhere that it can't be without hurting your knee. So, like Lee was saying, we are not aiming to become square in this little exercise. Sure, we're standing like this, it's easy to stay square and there isn't any turning. In the Taiji move, we turn the body from one direction to another, but I can pay attention frontally without having to take my dantian to the front. So don't worry about where your dantian ends up. Pay a lot more attention to keeping the leg that you're standing on stable, keeping that knee with the toes, keeping the tripod on that foot, and emptying the other leg. That's far more important than how far your dantian turns. And then just know that your focus isn't just in the corner, it's actually frontal, but it doesn't mean you have to twist yourself up to bring yourself to the front. So let's look at this movement again, and I'll acknowledge that we're not going through a whole, gather here and then you come up and how the weight shifting. We've done a lot of work on the weight shift. You've got all the tools you need to explore how you get out of your left leg and into your 70-30. One thing I will point out, though, is that it's easy to either think of this as just going right to 100% and not being a 70-30 that still has some stability and weight in the back leg, or to really still be using and relying on your back leg here. And so when I come into shouldering, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm holding myself up in my back leg. And that's not going to get me where I want to go, because then I still have to shift over this leg to get into the final posture. And then it's hard to move my other leg because I've been holding on the whole time. So when you do shouldering, make sure that when you come into your right leg, you really let go and release that back leg so that it's like another 70-30. And of course, at this point, because it's not the leg that's holding you up, that knee does not need to still be tracking the toes. Now this is the knee that you need to keep with you. This can be a little confusing to people. So it's the leg that you're standing on that needs the knee to be following the toes. And in any 70-30, it's going to be different in the back leg. The line that you're drawing is a different line. So it's the front leg. Here, you're not trying to keep this knee out over that foot, because if you do that, you're going to keep the weight in your back leg, and you need to have the weight in the front leg. Just treat it like another 70-30 that's just got a little awkward positioning. So, from the final posture of shouldering, give into the ground and come up to white crane. And just reposition yourself again. I'm going to face the camera this way. So the first thing that happens is that you're going to give in as you drop into your right leg. There's that special moment in the hips again. You're standing on top of a leg that has a little ball at the end of it. So as you sink into your right leg, it's going to turn you ever so slightly. It's passive, not active. And there's a sense of getting under your arm and starting the arm rising from there. So I give in, and then I'm rising without leaving the ground. My right foot is still connected to the ground, but the energy comes up. And that energy coming up is mimicked in how the arm rises. So let's do this again. From a good position in shouldering, make sure your right leg is holding you, your left leg is released, and you go into the ground, catch that right arm, and turn to the left to bring everything up and around. And again. Into the right leg and up through the right leg. Let that rebound drive the whole movement into the final posture. So shake your legs out a sec. The quality of down is not very long. This is not an equal thing where I go down and then I'm coming up. It's just a tap the ground kind of thing. So you give in and see how that turned me just the slightest bit. It's not an active turn. So do this with me because I want you to feel the difference. It can be a little misleading. So you're in shouldering. Just feel the ground. Notice how it turns you just the slightest bit, and then use that to bring everything up and around. Now this time we're going to make it an active turn. So drop into your right leg and turn to the right leg. And then get everything up and going. It's not that. Back to shouldering. Tap the ground, slight turn, get under your arm, and then as you turn, the arm rises. So, shake out your legs. Same shape of the arms as we were doing in standing at the edge of the abyss. Now I want to talk about how this left foot repositions. There's a method to our madness. There's a reason why we were looking at how standing up takes the slack out of the leg and helps it move. This is the reason. When you're coming out of shouldering, and this is another reason why you have to actually be in your front leg and let go of the rear leg. As you start coming up, you're taking the slack out of that back leg and you're lengthening it, and it just repositions as you complete the move. That's how it moves. So it's not a step. It's lengthening that repositions the foot to the place that you want it to land rather than putting your foot somewhere. So you can play along a little bit. Make sure you're not holding yourself up out of your left leg. And give in, getting under your right arm, coming up, turning, and as you rise, the foot will be lifted off the ground. This time we're not sliding it across the ground. That was just for that exercise. It actually leaves the ground and it repositions on the ball. And if you're doing it without stepping, you probably won't have any trouble getting your feet like an L, not a T. As soon as you try to step it, you're going to bring it too far. So this is another one of those places where the exact details of the square form are a description of what happens when you do the move correctly. It's not, I have to place it in exactly this place and worrying about where I'm putting it. It's that as you come up through, let that rebound come play out through the whole body, and there's a rising quality that starts peeling your heel off the ground, and as you keep completing the move and you turn, it just repositions. It will just land. There's not a special step. If you're having trouble moving that foot, chances are you haven't emptied the left leg yet. So I can't overemphasize how easy it is to still be holding on to that back leg when you're trying to come into the next move. So really, as you come into your shouldering, really let go of it so that when you continue, you can let this leg become free, and it's the turning of the waist as you keep letting the energy rise up and play out in an expansion that makes that foot move. So let's just try, let's even forget about the arms for a minute and just see what happens with your legs in this shape. So start in a 70-30, no width, or maybe, half width, feet at 90 degrees, dantians wherever it needs to be, and sit into your right leg and start turning and letting that expansion come through you. Feel what happens to your leg, and then just let it go and see where it lands. That should feel a lot better than trying to step your foot. It will have a little bit of a lag. This is another one of our common themes, is that everything doesn't move in lockstep when you're moving authentically because it has to play out. And this is a great example of how that plays out, because the foot, you got to get far enough away from it to have it be driven by the rest of the body. So you're coming into an expansion, you're coming up, and the foot moves at its time, not at a time that you have to pay attention to and direct. So let it have a little lag. It's not like you're leaving it there on purpose. It's not something that you're trying to leave it behind as long as possible, because here now I've missed the moment. I've held on to it too long, and it's not going to go anywhere unless I pick it up and move it. So look for that moment that it frees itself and just repositions. It should not feel like you have to do anything separate to that leg to make it step. So let's bring the arms back into the posture and hang out in this move for a moment and make sure you're letting go of your back leg. And then tap the ground in your right leg. Let the rebound come up through the body. There's a rising, expansive quality that brings your leg with it. Everything arrives together, even though things leave the ground and start moving at different times. They all arrive together. That's one of the hallmarks, really. So the fact that you leave a leg behind a little bit and it plays out at its own time doesn't mean that everything's already in place and then your foot arrives. There's a sense of that final little bit of turning that brings that foot into place and everything just arrives together. That's what you're going for. So let's do from lifting hands, just so we get a little momentum going, and play out this whole piece. So make sure you're 90 degrees, your knee is over your toe, and go. Shouldering, tap the ground, let that rebound come back up through the body, pulling your leg with it at the proper time. Notice where you landed. Dantian's going to be wherever it is. Don't worry about that. You want to make sure that your right hand is in the position to protect the temple. The left hand has come across your thigh and is there by the left, outside of the left thigh. There's no weight. You're standing at the edge of the abyss. The Grand Canyon is right there under your left. You're on the last rock of the Grand Canyon under your left foot. You can't have any weight there or you'll go tumbling. So make sure that you're 100%. Make sure that you haven't lost the connection between the knee and the bottom of the foot. That is a limitation in your Dantian that you want to make use of because you don't want to hurt your knee. So I think let's do some form. We'll do the form maybe a couple times up through white crane spreads wings. Okay, and go. Let's do it again. I want to say one thing about when the arm comes up. It can be a little confusing because we tell you to keep the shoulder down, the elbow drops, all that stuff. But your hand is up high. It's protecting the right temple. So that means that you're going to have your elbow up. It's not up, but it's not pointing down. And the thing you need to be aware of is that you're not using the whole piece of the arm, including the scapula, to get it up there. And so that's the requirement, is that the scapula stay down, but make sure that the arm gets more of a triangular shape. Don't think you have to try and keep it down, pointing down, to have the weighted elbow situation. That's the spreading the wings. The elbow is still hanging, but now it's hanging from here. It's not lifted, but it's not just drooping down. So let's do one more real quick with that in mind also. And go. Okay. So, white crane spreads wings. See you all next time.